Hello, good afternoon and welcome live to the Theatre Royal in Nottingham, and I'm with a legend, a man that is the king of showbiz. He's everywhere, he's omnipresent in show business. You can turn up anywhere and see him in any theatre, it seems. You are fantastic. Christopher Biggins, nice to talk to you again.
It's very nice to see you, this time in the flesh, because we've spoken on the phone many times.
And you won't remember what we last talked about.
Oh dear, go on, tell me, what was it?
Well, you were a master baker, do you not remember?
I do remember. That fantastic video that we made of Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Now, I was trying to work out when that was. It was something like 96 or 97, wasn't it? It was a while ago now.
I think it was, but another one of my fantasies was reached in that particular show where, oh God, my brain's gone dumb now, but who started it?
Donny Osmond.
Donny Osmond. I think of Danny. Donny Osmond actually held my hand and sang to me. I thought, this is it now. I can die and go to heaven. And he was such a nice guy. He really was.
He does seem like the sweetheart of show business, that man. There seems to be nothing about him that's nasty or anything, does there?
No, he was absolutely charming. I remember very early one morning in makeup, we were all sitting there, and he came in and he was wearing in a white dressing gown. He had a terrible cold and he was really not feeling too well. And he took off the dressing gown. He had a tiny pair of white briefs because he was having his makeup put on his body, you know, for a tan. And I turned to him and I said, "Morning, Donny, are those your own legs?" Well, there was a moment and then he fell on the floor laughing. It cheered him up no end. But he was so nice to everybody, and a big star like that, it was great. It was fantastic.
It was a really good video as well. I know it's sold very well around the world because Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat is back on in London. It seems to be one of those shows that will run forever and ever and ever and find new stars with a new generation.
Absolutely. I mean, it is such a clever show. I mean, I think it's Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice at their best, I think, and I've seen it many, many times. So I was thrilled to play the Master Baker, as you so nicely put it, in that. And we had such a good time. And I do think it'll go on forever because I think it appeals to a whole new generation. It's very interesting. It's like, for instance, a series I did on television called Porridge, which is still being repeated 30 years later and getting a new audience, you see, who love it. And I hope that's going to go on forever too, because the repeats are very nice.
And do you get a fee?
Certainly do. In 1974, I was on £90 an episode, and it's nearly 900 I get now.
It's amazing because some people have been shafted, the likes of Sue Pollard with Heidi High and things like that. They don't get repeat fees because it was in their contract that they could repeat it so many times. And for example, the audience with Ken Dodd, he signed a deal in the beginning that they could repeat it twice with a fee, and then he doesn't get paid now. So there's lots of contracts. You've got to be very careful in show business, haven't you?
You're not serious. Is that
absolutely
true?
Serious, yeah.
Well, we were very lucky. And I know that because we've just done something very, very exciting. It's coming out this autumn for the BBC. What it is, it's like a fly-on-the-wall documentary about Porridge. Now, 30 years later, there we are. You see, they can tell how this is live. There's the tannoy. No, but what it is, it's 30 years later, us talking about being in Slade Prison, not Christopher Biggins or Ronnie Barker or Sam Kelly, but our characters, Lukewarm, and Ronnie's running a pub, and I'm abroad, working with my boyfriend and still knitting, and it's brilliant. So they talk to us as though it's a fly-on-the-wall documentary, and then they show clips from Porridge. It's going to be really fantastic.
When will we see that?
I think it'll be out this autumn.
Fantastic. Now, we should explain why we're here. We're not just here by coincidence. We're here for Summer Holiday, which is an amazing show. I saw it Monday night, the big press night, and it was full. And you don't get that very often here these days. In any theatre, it's the same. This is one of the better theatres, and it's very hard to fill, but this seems to have sold out. It's based on the film, really, Summer Holiday, and it's starring Darren Day and yourself, of course, and Suzanne Shaw from Hearsay. It's got a great cast, hasn't it?
It really has got a great cast. And I tell you, Monday night was so fantastic for us because this is such a, as you said, a beautiful theatre. And to have it packed to capacity. And I have to say that the business has been incredible. We had just a matinee which was packed. It's been wonderful. So it's really, really exciting, and it is a great show. I mean, I'd say to interviewers like yourself on the radio, television, or if I'm being interviewed for a newspaper, the main criterion about this show, Summer Holiday, is please don't bring your brains. Leave the brains in the car, in the garage, in the car park, whatever, but don't bring them into the theatre because it's a bit of nonsense, but it's a fabulous bit of nonsense. And we've been touring now for, I think it's 20 weeks, something ridiculous. And every single, even if the audience haven't been great, at the end, they're all on their feet singing and dancing. It's a wonderful. I used to get rather emotional about it to begin with, because I've never had this before, and it's really been wonderful. Really great.
I don't know if you do it every show, but one thing that I thought was very good about this, you come down into the audience at the end and say hello to people, and I thought that was great because it kind of made it personal. And as you say, you do whip them up in the end and get everybody right into the frame of mind that you're in on stage.
No, we do go in every night to the audience, which I love. I agree. It's a very nice gesture, and people are, they're so excited and up and high. It's fantastic. And you get wonderful matinees and odd performances where there are people in wheelchairs who are desperately trying to dance. And it is fantastic. It's a real feel-good musical. It's wonderful.
What's it like working with Darren Day then?
He is terrific. He's great. We had Stefan Booth, and unfortunately he had to leave for work commitments. But and of course Darren did it originally for many, many years. But he's such a nice guy. And the last time we met before doing this, we were at the first night of Mike Reed's tribute to Cliff Richard called Cliff the Musical, which is possibly one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life.
Thank God you said that. I thought it was just me. I actually left after about 24 minutes, and I've never ever left a show.
Well, if it hadn't been a first night, and if I hadn't been on comps, I would have left too. But my criterion is that if I've been given free tickets, I have to stay to the end, sadly. So it's much better to pay for them. But it was sort of funny enough, I was at dinner, we were at High Wycombe last week, and I was at dinner with Cliff Richard, and Mike Reed was there, and I thought, I can't speak to him, so I sort of walked around trying not to say hello. And I'm pleased that Cliff didn't go, and I talked to Cliff about it, because I think Cliff would have been so upset.
Well, I have a dilemma, you see. I interviewed Mike Reed down in London, I think it was a week or so after it opened. It didn't stay open for much longer than that, but I had a dilemma that you don't want to be rude to celebrities, and I said to him, who are you aiming this at? Because I thought if you're aiming at Cliff fans, it didn't really do anything for them. If it was a musical for, like We Will Rock You, which I think is fantastic with the PA system, it wasn't really that either, because the sound quality wasn't brilliant. It wasn't really anything, was it? I don't know what went wrong with that.
Well, I don't know. I think ego was one of the main problems, I think. And it was just, you just couldn't believe the banality of the whole thing. I mean, those girls who were supposed to be fans coming on and, Mike Reed standing there in a pair of shorts and a tennis racket trying to be Cliff. It was just, you thought it was a most terrible nightmare, that you'd woken up and you had to sit there throughout it. I mean, it was very, very unfortunate. And it should never have gone on. I mean, I just don't know how. So I hope someone lost a lot of money because they deserve to.
It was very odd. I think possibly Mike Reed did, because I know he invested an awful lot into it, didn't he? What is the deal with theatre now? Because I've spent the last few years all my life interviewing people like you in touring shows, and recently I've been working in the West End, and it's not going so well. There are some shows like We Will Rock You, which I think are excellent. The press hate it, but it still sells out because it is a great fun show. It's a bit like this, as you say. Don't go there expecting, Shakespeare or an intellectual night out. But so many shows are closing. I did 30 musicals last Christmas. Half of them have closed. They've gone already. What's going wrong with theatre?
Well, I tell you what I think is going wrong. I think that if you take London, for instance, there's a lot of things. There's congestion charge, which now prohibits people coming into the theatre because of charges, having to go in a car park or the risk of having a fine. I think that the West End is filthy, dirty. It's not pleasant at all. I think it's so expensive. I mean, £45 to go and see a show. I think that prices should be looked at. I mean, Cameron McIntosh and Andrew Lloyd Webber are friends of mine, and I know that they are trying to do the best they can. But you see, these big musicals with a huge orchestra, huge chorus, huge stars, they need lots and lots of money, and I think that has to change. For instance, I think the show like we're doing, Summer Holiday, there should have been a decision made right at the beginning that nearly every seat in the theatre was £10, first come, first served, and they would have made a lot of money. But a theatre doesn't want to be seen to be downgrading the prices. That is ridiculous. I think people are not tight, I think they're finding that things are tight. Everything is very expensive. There are so many hidden taxes in life. Restaurants, drink, everything is sort of high, and it's difficult to actually bring people into the theatre.
It's impossible London-wise. I mean, to go from here, it's £30 on the train. You get there, you have to have a meal, probably another £30 if there's two of you. So we're already up to nearly £100. And as you say, and then another £100 for tickets. It is outrageous. But I don't know where it's going to end, because it's not necessarily doing any good for theatre, is it? I mean, we look at what's successful and what's staying. It's not traditional theatre. It's more of the star-led shows with either a star in it or the star being Queen. We've got the ABBA shows and things like that. Yeah. It's changing, isn't it? The demographics changing as well of people who are going.
It is changing. And funnily enough, a great friend of mine was over last week who is head of the Schubert Theatres in New York. And he was saying that they're having a renaissance. I mean, everything that they're doing on Broadway, they're doing right. And it's interesting, after September the 11th, when things obviously went down and shows like Phantom had to close and things like that, now suddenly, people are going back, people are high, they want to be entertained, and there are incredible shows. There's The Producers, Hairspray, which is fantastic. I die to play that part in Hairspray.
You could get that. You are perfect for that.
Well, I've got ways of trying to get it. I mean, I think I am perfect. Just for your listeners, it was a film called Hairspray with Divine, who was the most extraordinary character playing it, and it's played in New York by Harvey Feinstein.
Can you do the voice?
No, well, I wouldn't. You see, I could, but I wouldn't be able to sustain half a performance. But I don't think, Divine didn't have that voice. It's just that Harvey Feinstein has that incredible voice. And I think they found it quite difficult to cast the tour going around America. So I'm really going to have a good jab at that, because I think I'd be perfect. But they are doing well. And I think we need to look to see what New York's doing. And I think they are, well, first of all, America's much, much cheaper. I mean, food, drink, everything like that is cheaper. Interestingly enough, the tickets are more expensive. Yeah. But I think people will find the money if they really want to go and see something.
As you say, The Producers is coming over here, they think in the autumn, and that's another show that could be good for you. And I was thinking about that show. Traditionally, when it launched in New York, they had two big stars. Yeah. And they've tried to keep that format, although they've changed it now. Who are they going to get to play the big fat role with no... I'm not saying that, I'm a large man myself. I'm not saying you're large, but what I'm saying is you would be the perfect... I couldn't think of another comic character who could almost do justice to that role over here.
Funnily enough, the role in The Producers I'd like to have is the role of the director, which in fact was played by Christopher Hewitt in the film, who is a man not unlike me stature-wise, who sadly is no longer with us. And I would like that role. I think it's a very difficult role. Nathan Lane was sensational, and I can't think. I mean, what I hope is that Nathan Lane will come with it, and I think it would be, if they could persuade him, it would be fantastic, because he is such an incredible performer that I think London would just go bananas seeing him. But I agree with you. I can't think of anybody, and I'm too terrified. I think it's a mammoth role. I mean, God,
incredible.
It's the Hamlet of the musical world.
It really is. Those shows are hopefully coming over this year. We spoke to the stars last year on the Magic of the Musicals at Christmas, and it was certainly wonderful seeing them, because they're so impressive. They don't do anything by halves. They do put the money in, and you can see just from the minute the curtain opens, it's just so impressive to watch, isn't it?
But I've always felt that with America. I mean, I went to America, I think in 69, 70. And
Sorry, are we all right for time? I'm talking away to you.
No, absolutely fine. Sure. No, I'm enjoying it. 69, 70, I went to New York, and I remember the first show I ever saw on Broadway was a Tommy Tune musical, which was in its something like fourth year or something. It was just about coming off. And I'm going to dry on the name it was called now, but it's... Anyway, it was so fantastic. It was the first time that I had seen the spectacle that New York or American theatre does. I mean, I wish I'd seen Ethel Merman in Gypsy, and I wish I'd seen so many things. In fact, I missed by a week the original Follies, which apparently was fantastic. And they did musicals like nobody else could do. Then suddenly, of course, Cameron Mackintosh came along, and and Angela Weber, and they gave the audiences what I think they'd been yearning for after many, many years. But now I think that it's developed into the wrong sort of shows. I mean, I don't know quite what's going to happen. I think things have to change radically, I think.
As you say, though, let's look forward to The Producers, and you would be perfect for that. But as I say, particularly Hairspray, that role would just be ideal for you. Particularly the ballad that in the second half when they sing to each other.
Isn't that divine? It's wonderful. I mean, it's I don't think we told your listeners. It's about the main woman, the mother, is played by a man, and but it's not a transvestite. It's not a drag act. It is a woman, just happens to be a man, and it's very much how I play pantomime in a way. And I suppose that's where I think I would be good for it. And it is a very special role.
We interviewed Dick Letissa on this programme, who's the man in the relationship, and he wants to come over here. Do you fancy being next to him, do you think?
Absolutely. What was he doing over here?
I interviewed him on Broadway in the show, so he was saying that if it came over here, he's always wanted to come over here to perform on the West End stage.
Well, he was very good, and once again, it's difficult to know who that would play that part in an English actor, because he's an older character actor with immense charm and, a throwaway performance. I thought it was fantastic.
Great dignity on stage as well, isn't it? It's that refinedness.
Absolutely. Great dignity, which, the Americans seem to know all about. There's an American Broadway star. There's nothing quite like them.
A friend of mine on Broadway emailed me the figures yesterday, by the way. The Lion King made its first loss. It's still over £1 million a week. Made its first loss of $28 last week.
No.
$28 down last week.
That was costs then to run the show, do you mean?
That was their profit on last week.
Profit. Oh my goodness, how amazing. Well, I think it is changed. I think the days of the musical that's run for 14, 15, 16 years, 20 years, 21 years, they've gone. I don't think any musical, however good, will run that long anymore. I went to saw The Last Night of Cats, which I think was that 21 years or 20?
Yeah, something like that.
And that was one of the most exciting evenings. It was nearly as exciting as the opening night. But, I think that... I don't know. I don't think we're going to see that. I don't think Mamma Mia will reach those proportions.
Now, let's talk about The Entertainers, because this was a series that I thoroughly enjoyed watching as a voyeur of people like yourself, personalities, and that's something I like about you. You're an old-style showbiz personality that comes on stage and everybody just loves. There aren't many of those anymore. And this programme, The Entertainers, on BBC Two, it was on for half an hour, I think, a week, sometimes twice a week, and it showed the old-style comedians and people like yourself that weren't necessarily comedians, but were variety performers that people loved. And I think you were the only one that came out of it unscathed, because you were you. I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. I think we did come out of it very well, certainly from what I gather from press, and also what I gather from the public, who I meet all the time, and they were really thrilled by it, and I was thrilled by it. It was a very difficult thing to say yes to. I turned it down so many times, and they kept putting the money out, so I thought, well, I better do it, pay the mortgage. But I really did enjoy it, and I think the reason I enjoyed it was that we were absolutely ourselves. There was no, even to the fact that I opened the front door in my boxer shorts, which I do. When I go in, the first thing I do is take off my trousers. I loathe trousers. They get in the way. So I'm always round the house, and if postmen come or the window cleaner, I'm in my boxer shorts, and that's it. I never think about it. So it wasn't a conscious... it made me laugh when I saw it, and I thought I looked much better than Bernard Manning, thank goodness, in his wide fronts.
And I have to say, just point out, you are actually in trousers now for our listeners. We wouldn't like to have any confusion.
Hang on, listeners. Yes, I am.
Had a good check. Yes, Bernard Manning. Now, that was a sight for sore eyes the other week. All of these programmes, though, I think it was a very risky thing to do, no matter how much the money, because they did turn on people like Bernie Clifton, or at least that was how I perceived it. I don't know whether he did or not.
Well, I think, unfortunately, the public's perception was wrong, because I agree, a lot of people thought, he was... I happen to know Bernie Clifton very well. He's one of the funniest men, and what they did was his camera guy, producer, director, whatever, he went with it, and of course they mistimed it completely, because they were acting out this scenario which didn't come across at all. They thought they were being funny. In fact, what they weren't. Everyone was taking it seriously. What a moaner he was, Bernie. Well, Bernie's not a moaner. That was all very unfortunate. Leo Sayers obviously is mad as a hatter, and that strange wife of his. The Crankies were divine, I thought. I love the Crankies, and Jeanette was hysterical, loading up her washing up machine, things like that. Nicholas Parsons was Nicholas Parsons. But, I think we did, because we were ourselves and we had a laugh, I think it came over. And I even had a grumble now and again, which was good, complaining.
I think where it never went wrong, though, that you never sounded bitter. There's always a worry with that programme. And, of course, they're filming hours of you in your home, which is a peculiar thing to do, to allow a TV camera into your home in your most intimate circle, if you like, to film every good bit and bad bit. They can edit that to show you in a certain way, but you never came across as bitter, and some people did, as if they hadn't quite made it as far as they wanted to.
Well, I think bitterness is one of the saddest things you can ever be, and I've never been bitter. I've had, there are lots of things I would like to have done, and lots of things perhaps I hope I will do, but as we speak now, in 2003, I've had the most fantastic career. I've had the most fantastic time. I've met the most wonderful people, not only show business people, but lots of people in industry and in the arts and in all sorts of different fields. And I've led a charmed life. I mean, it's great. My life is wonderful. And I've always said that, I never think about the future because I just live for today. I know so many people who are my age, slightly older, who've died. And they've been saving for that, retirement. What's the point? Who wants to have lots of money when you're 60 or 70 and you can't do anything with it? Right. Do it now. I'm sure hopefully there'll be people around when I'm 60 and 70 who look after me.
Are you always this happy? That's something that I wanted to ask you, because you come across on stage as your character as very, very happy. And we saw you in The Entertainers as very, very happy. And you look as if you love doing pantomime and you're very happy. You're sat here now, you look happy. I mean, are you you just like to smile and be happy? You've got nothing to be angry about.
I find it easier to smile than be anything else. And I do enjoy life. Little things make me laugh. I'll laugh on my own, because something has made me laugh. Something on the television, on the radio, makes me laugh out loud. And I'd much rather, obviously I have my moods, but they're very, very few and far between. I could always turn something to my advantage to make it funny, and I'd much rather do that. And I have a serious side. I went to a lunch party on Sunday with people I didn't really know, and I had a fantastic discussion about politics and trying to put the world to rights and all that. I do think quite seriously along those lines. But at the end of the day, I think it's much, much nicer to have a laugh and be fun.
One of the things that came across in The Entertainers, and I've seen today and also in the past, is that you give time to your fans. A lot of stars don't do that, and I think they fall foul of it. You do give a lot of time to people on the street, in the shops. You'll always find just a moment for them if you can.
Well, I think that's important. Without them, you'd be nothing. And if they think, that's a nice person, I'll watch him or I'll go and see him in the theatre or what have you. I think that's very, very important. And I agree with you. I do get very upset. When people are particularly not friendly towards those people who've put them where they are. And I think it's a great shame. So I'll always be nice. If you ever see me in the street, come up. Say hello. Because
you really are, at the end of the day, only as big as your fans, aren't you, really?
Absolutely. And, and also we're just ordinary people, we're not anything special, we get lots of special perks, it's lovely to be able to go to a restaurant people can't get into or get upgraded on a flight or something. But, at the end of the day, we're just like everybody. I'm just like you, Oh, no, you're not like me. No, really, you wouldn't want to be like that. And the great thing about show business, I've sat here with the good, the bad and the ugly of show business, and I always say they give you such a glamorous, wonderfully decorated room, don't they? I had this wonderful breeze block wallpaper put up especially for me. It is, and there's not even, there is a fridge, because some theatres you go, there's no fridge. I've got a lavatory and I've got a shower and a basin. This is quite good, and a window, which is very rare. But some theatres are unbelievable. They are, my friend Cilla Black is famous, and her late husband used to tell me this. She is famous for putting more bathrooms into theatres than anybody else, because in her contract, when she was touring around the country, even if it was one night, she had to have a dressing room with a sofa and a bed in it, and she had to have a bath, shower, loo and basin. If they didn't have it, they didn't get her, so they put them in.
Fantastic. I love stories like that. We must talk again. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. The show's Summer Holiday. It's a great show. It's got Darren Day in it. He's a big star at the minute after his Get Me Out of Here thing, isn't
yes,
he?
I was asked to do the second series of that, and I turned that down. I thought, no, I can't go with more humiliation. I think to be with those boring people, God.
Celebrities do come across as somewhat narrow-minded and a bit boring sometimes, don't they? They don't seem to have a lot to say if they're not talking about themselves.
Boring? What about that weather girl? What was her name? God, she was dreary. I'd have committed suicide at night with them. The only person I liked was Wayne Sleep, was an old friend of mine. I think he must have played my part, because they wouldn't have had two people like that in it.
It's fantastic. The show's Summer Holiday. It's on at the Nottingham Theatre Royal. It's starring Darren Day and, of course, Christopher Biggins. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Hello, this is Christopher Biggins, and yes, I am with Alex Belfield, and it's one of the greater moments of my life. Bye-bye.